Okay, so this is part 2 of the first episode, so we should continue. Second, dissemination and new translations. From the 11th century onward, there was an attempt to reintroduce Vajrayana Buddhism to Tibet. This saw new translation efforts, which led to the foundation of new Vajrayana school, which are collectively known as Sarma, new translation schools, because they reject the old translation of the Nyingma canon. It was at that time the Nyingma began to see themselves as a distinct group, and the term Nyingma came into usage to refer to those who continued to use the old or ancient translations. Nyingma writers such as Rongzom in the 11th century and Nyangro were instrumental in defending the old text from the critics of the Sarma translation and in establishing a foundation for mythology and philosophy of the Nyingma tradition. Rongzom Chokyi Zangpo was the most influential of the 11th century Nyingma authors, writing extensive esoteric and esoteric commentaries. He upheld the view that sutra teachings such as Madhyamaka were ultimately inferior to the teachings found in the Buddhist Tantras and Dzogchen. Rongzom also wrote a commentary of Guyagarpa Tantra, which is the main Tantra in Nyingma tradition. The period of the new dissemination of Buddhism, which saw the rise of the Sarma schools, also saw the proliferation of fresh Nyingma Dzogchen texts with fresh doctrines and meditative practice, mainly the space class Longde and the instruction class Mengate from the 11th to the 14th century. Particularly important were the 17 tantras. To vitalize the legitimacy of these new texts against the criticism of the Sarma school, the Nyingma school expanded the tradition of Dharma, which are said to be revealed treasure texts by ancient masters, usually Padmasambhava, which had been hidden away and then discovered by third dons, which is treasure revealers. The first third dons, dating to the 11th century, were Sangye Lama and Drapangonshe. Another important third don, Nyangro Nyima Ozor, was the principal promulgator of the Padmasambhava mythos. According to Janet Gyatso, Guru Chowang was also influential in developing the myth of Padmasambhava. Nyangro and Chogi Wangchuk are known as the sun and moon of third dons, and along with Ritsin Golden, are called the three grand tertons. By this period, we see the establishment of three major classes of Nyingma literature: those translated and transmitted without interruption from the beginning of Buddhist dissemination are called transmitted precepts, Gama. The hidden treasures are called Dharma, and the last three are those collected works, Sungbum, of individual Tibetan authors. Systemization and growth. Longchen Rabjama Drime Ozer Longchenpa from 1308 to 1364, probably 69, is a central thinker and poet in Nyingma thought and Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. He's mainly known for his systemized integration and exposition of the major textual cycles, such as the Mengate in his writings, which by his time has become central text in the Nyingma tradition. His main writing include the Seven Treasuries, Mzotbun, and the Trilogy of Natural Freedom. Rangron Skor Kusum, the trilogy that cleared darkness, Moon Cell Skor Kusum, and the trilogy of natural ease, Ngan Gisol Skor Kusum. The 14th and 15th century saw the work of many Tertons such as Orkien Lingpa, Pema Lingpa, Sangye Lingpa, and Ratna Lingpa. Another key figure was Karama Lingpa, who wrote down an important work called Profound Dharma of Self-Liberation through the intention of the peaceful and wrathful one, which includes the two texts of the Bardo Toskoro, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Loten Dharmasri wrote important commentaries on the Wuhyar Garpa Tantra, and his brother Terdak Lingpa was the founder of the Mind Rolling Monastery in 1670, one of the 6 major Nyingma monastery. A later seminal figure in the development of the Nyingma system was Jigme Lingpa, the greatest treasure finder of the 18th century, whose Longchet Niting, the herd extent of the vast expanse, is a systemization of the path, which is one of the most widely used Nyingma Dzogchen teachings today. The innovation that emerged within the Nyingma tradition during the 17th and 18th centuries significantly accelerated its revival, which was also greatly supported by the favorable attitudes of the 5th Dalai Lama and the ruler of central Tibet in the early 18th century, Polhane, I don't know. Rime and the rise of scholasticism. In 1848, the Nyingma monastic college of Dzogchen Sri Sengha was founded in Kham by a charismatic teacher, Zanpan Thaya, in association with the active participation of Do Khyentse. According to George Dreyfus, the Nyingma school had traditionally relied on non-ordained tantric practitioners to transmit its teaching through authorized lineage. The foundation of this monastic school was a major shift in the Nyingma tradition, and is seen as response to the growth of the Gelug school hegemony, which was based on well-organized system of monastic scholasticism and education. The sort of study and learning in this monastery was mostly based on exegetical commentary, a contrast to more debate-based Gelug education. In this way, the Nyingma school revitalized itself and presented itself as a legitimate rival to the Gelug school. The 19th century also saw the rise of the non-sectarian Rime movement led by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and Jamgon Kongtrul, which sought to collect and print the teachings of the Sakya, Kagyu, and Nyingma schools in response to the hegemonic influence of the Gelug school. Jamjonju Mifam Gyatso, Mifam the Great, was born into an aristocratic family in 1846 in Kham, a province of eastern Tibet. Mifam was a student of Rime scholars like Kongtrul. Mifam composed authoritative works on both the Sutra and Vajrayana teaching as understood in the Nyingma tradition, writing extensively on Dzogchen and Madhyamaka. According to Karma Phuntsho, Mifam works completely revolutionized Nyingma's scholasticism in the late 19th century, raising its status after many centuries as a comparative intellectual backward to arguably the most dynamic and expansive of philosophical traditions in all of Tibetan Buddhism, with an influence and impact far beyond the Nyingma themselves. Mifam work has become the foundation of study for not only the Nyingma lineage, but the Kagyu lineage as well. They hold a central position in all Nyingma monastery and monastic college. Following the step of Mifam, Khenpo Shenga was also an important figure in the revitalization of Nyingma monastic education by establishing the study of exoteric philosophy at Dzogchen Sri Sangha through the use of classic Indian texts, which include the major works of Asanga, Nagarjuna, and Ayadeva. Khenpo Shenga composed commentaries on these key texts and scholastic textbook. He focused on the study of these texts as a way to avoid sectarian disputes by appealing to classic Indian material. The 19th century also saw the production of new Dharma texts, particularly by Organ Chokyu Lingpa, Pema Osen Dongak Lingpa, and Duchom Lingpa. Another important figure is Pachun Rinpoche, who wrote the Words of My Perfect Teacher, a key text on Nyingma preliminaries. Teaching 9 yanas. Okay, now we move on to teaching. The doxography employed by the Nyingma tradition to categorize the whole of the Buddhist path is unique. Nyingmapas divide the Buddhists into 9 yanas as follows. Sutra system. Sravakayana, the vehicle of the listeners or disciples. Pratyekabuddhayana, Hinayana, the vehicle of the solitary Buddhas, the way of solitary meditation. Bodhisattvayana, Mahayana, the great or casual vehicle, the vehicle of enlightened being, is the way of those who seek or attain enlightenment for the sake or intention of liberating not just oneself, but all sentience from samsara. Outer Tantras. Kriya. Tantra of action, which involves ritual, mantra repetition, and visualization. Karya or Ubaya. Tantra of conduct, equal amounts of meditation and symbolic rituals. Yoga Tantra, Tantra of union. Passed down into Tibet by disciple of Buddha Guya, which is linked to a complete enjoyment body Buddha. Vajrasattva for Kriya, Mansuri for Karya, and Avalokiteshvara for Yoga Tantra. Inner Tantra, Mahayoga, Great Yoga. Subsequent Yoga, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen. Ultimate Yoga, the great perfection, often practiced in monastery, kept specially for this purpose. The 18 major works of Inner Tantra were transmitted and translated by Padmasambhava and Vimalamitra, which Samanta Bahadara as the origin. In the later schools in the Inner Tantric teachings are known as Anuttara Yoga Tantra, which correspond to Mahayoga in the Nyingma system, while the Mahamudra teaching of the later schools are said to lead to similar results as Dzogchen teachings. Boys, I am a bit thirsty and I am going to head out for a bit of water. Okay, I'm back, guys. I'm back. So the 18 major words, I don't remember where I end, so I will read this. Oh, I have read this. The first two of the 9 vehicles are seen as Hinayana, the third as Mahayana, and the remaining 6 as specifically Vajrayana. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, what? 1, 2, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, sorry. So outer tantras and inner tantras are Vajrayana. Okay. Dudjom Jigdran Yeshe Dorje emphasized the 8 lower vehicles are intellectually fabricated and contrived, while Rongzom held that the view of sutras such as Madhyamaka were inferior to that of Tantra. The 9 vehicles are further categorized into 4 divisions. Basis continue, referring to Samanta Bhara, the primordially awakened truth body. Number 2 is path continuum. Practice aimed at eliminating afflictions through the accumulation of merit and wisdom. 3. Result continuum, the attainment of awakening following bodhisattva training. And 4th, method continuum, the awakened being's capacity to benefit sentient being. Practice. Preliminary practice. Like in other schools of Tibetan Buddhism, Nyingma teach various forms of ngondro or preliminary practice which help prepare the mind for later meditation. These include the cultivation of bodhicitta, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and vajrasattva, purification practice, yidam practice protectors. Deity yoga is also a feature of Nyingma. The foremost deities, yidam, practiced by the Nyingma masters are Vajrakila, Dorje and Vajraheruka. I think I should show you guys an image. So this is Vajraheruka. Wait, what? Why do they look the same? Holding a kila, a dagger in his heart. Let's see. Oh, here's the dagger. The dagger. Okay. Okay. So Vajraheruka. So probably he won't have a dagger. Do I see any dagger? Probably no. So yeah, that's the point. Wait. Wait. Why do I see a dagger? Look. Dagger. Okay, I can't tell the difference, sorry. Maybe I have to spend more time. But yeah. and Vajraheruka, the third of 8 Herukas, who closely resembles three Heruka of the Chakra Samvara Tantra. The three principal protectors of the Nyingma lineage are said to be Ekajati, Rahula, and Dorje Lekpa. Other practice. Other practice for like Lojong and Sababody practice such as Chukor are also taught in Nyingma. Scriptural canon. With the advent of the transmission of Sarma traditions into Tibet, various proponents of the new system cast aspersions on the Indic origins such of much of the Nyingma esoteric corpus. Indic origin was an important component of perceived legitimacy at the time. As a result, much of the Nyingma esoteric corpus was excluded from the Tengyur, a compilation of texts by Bhutan Rinchen Drup that became the established canon for the Sarma traditions. That means that while Nyingma accept the Tengyur scriptures, they also include writings that other schools reject as not being authentic or having no Indic sources, though Sanskrit originals of some have been discovered in Nepal. This is funny. The Nyingma school acknowledged two primary types of transmission lineage: teaching, Gama, unbroken instruction passed down from Buddha, and two, hidden treasure, dharmas, which were concealed by past masters. The Kama lineage, which begins with Padmasambhava, Shantarakshita, Vilamitra, and Varochana, is the oral transmission lineage and is called the source of Nyingma tradition by Nyingma scholars Khenchen Pal and Sherab Rinpoche. It is further stated by Khenchen Pal Den Sherab Rinpoche that from the time of Guru Padmasambhava and for at least 3 centuries afterward, everyone who attained enlightenment in Tibet did so by practicing the Kama lineage teaching of Nyingma school. The Kama lineage remained predominant from the 8th to 11th century, and Kama masters taught from the lineage teachings. The Terma lineage is the revealed transmission lineage where Turtons or treasure revealers realize the teaching. The rising of the Terma lineage began in the 11th century, and by the 14th century, Turtons were more sought as teachers than Kama masters. The Terma lineage was established by Guru Padmasambhava and Yeshe Tsogya through the hiding of teachings for the purpose of future discovery. The Kama is the basis of Terma. I don't know why they hide them. Like the purpose of future discovery, then why don't you pass down? The Nyingmapas organized their esoteric corpus, comprising mostly Mahayoga, Ati-yoga, Mind Class Samde, and Space Class Longde text, into an alternate collection called the Nyingma Gyubum, the 100,000 Tantras of the ancient school. Generally, Gyubum contains Kama, and very little Dharma. The third class of Adi Yoga, the sacred oral instruction Mengakde, are mostly Dharma text. Various editions of the Gyubu are extant, but one typical version is the 36 Tibetan language folio volumes published by Diogo Khyentse Rinpoche in 1974. It contains 10 volumes of Adiyoga, 3 volumes of Anuyoga, 6 volumes of Tantra section of Mahayoga, 13 volumes of Sadhana section of Mahayoga, 1 volume of Protector Tantras, and 3 volumes of catalogs and historical background. Mahayoga. There are 18 great tantras at the heart of the Mahayoga tradition, grouped into 5 root tantras, 5 practice tantras, and 5 activity tantras, and the 2 supplementary tantras. Together they are known as Mayajala. The Guhyagarbha Tantra is the foremost of all these, and it abridged the content of the 17 others. Dzogchen, great perfection, is the central distinctive practice and view which is the focus of Nyingma, and it is seen by the school as the supreme practice. It is seen as the ultimate understanding of the nature of mind, which is known as Rigpa. Dzogchen seeks to understand the nature of mind without the subtle body practices and visualization of other tantric forms. The Dzogchen Tantras state that visualizing practice are inferior to Dzogchen, which directly works with the nature of mind itself. A main feature of Dzogchen is the practice of cutting through the everyday mind and its obscurations to reach primordial. How do you read this word? Primordial nature of mind of Rigpa, which is essentially purity and spontaneity, and is associated with emptiness. The second form of Dzogchen practice is referred to as the direct approach, and involves making an effort at recognizing spontaneity through the use of visions or appearance. This is said to be associated with skillful means, upaya. The Nyingma Dzogchen lineage was transmitted from Garab Dorje to Padmasambhava. The most influential Nyingma scholar yogi of the Great Perfection is Longchenpa, and his voluminous work mark a turning point in the scholastic systematization and refinement of the Nyingma Dzogchen system. Couple notes, although later Nyingma authors such as Mifam attempt to harmonize the view of Dzogchen with Madhyamaka, the earlier Nyingma author Rongzom Chokyi Zampo did not. Dzogchen literature is usually divided into 3 categories, which more or less reflect the historical development of Dzogchen. 1. Semde, the Mind series. The category contains the earliest Dzogchen teachings from the 9th century and later. It includes texts like Harbinger of Awareness and the Kunjet Gyalpo Tantra, the most significant of the Mind Tantras. 21 main Tantras are listed, though the Great Leveler contains 5 of them, and other similar texts are included in different recensions in the Mind section. Longde, the series of space dating from 11th to 14th centuries. These texts emphasize emptiness or spaciousness. The most important text in this division is Samantabhara Royal Tantra of all-inclusive vastness. Next is Mengate, the series of secret oral instruction from 11th to 14th century. This division, including the important 17 tantras, focus on 2 major forms of practice. Karakchako, the cutting through of primordial, Primordial. 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 Sorry, man. Primordial purity. Direct crossing of spontaneous present. Primordial. Termas. According to Nyingma tradition, Padmasambhava and his main disciples hid hundreds of scriptures, ritual objects, and relics in sacred places to protect Buddhism during the time of decline under King Lang Dharma. And when the Dharma would need revitalizing in the future, these termas were later rediscovered. This system is effective in revitalizing the Nyingma order while preserving its connection to tradition. Termas are often encoded in Dakini language, which can only be deciphered by those trained in its interpretation. Additionally, safeguards are said to be in place to prevent their discovery before appropriate time, ensuring that they are only revealed only by the right individual at the right moment. The core terma texts are the 8 Heruka sadhanas brought to Tibet by Padmasambhava. Today, the Rinchen Tenzar is the most important collection of Dharma treasures to Nyingma Pass. This collection is the assemblage of thousands of the most important Dharma texts from all across Tibet made by Jamgon Kongtung Lodro Taiye at the behest of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo in the 19th century. Hierarchy and teachers. Internal administration. The Nyingma schools traditionally had no centralized authority or Nyingma-wide hierarchy. There was never a single head of the lineage in the manner of either the Karmapa of Karma Kagyu or the Sakya Chizin of the Sakya school or the Ganden Tripa of the Gelong school. After the Tibet diaspora following the Chinese invasion of Tibet, the Nyingma school temporarily had a head of the school. The 14th Dalai Lama appointed Dudjom Rinpoche to the position in 1960 in a semi-official status. Dudjom Rinpoche led efforts until his passing in 1987 to stabilize the exile community to gather Tibetan Buddhist texts. The temporary Nyingma leadership position lasts from 1960 to 2018 was largely administrative, but the Rinpoches who serve in this role are among the most universally highly regarded. They include Dudjom Jigdran Yeshe Dorje Rinpoche, served from 1960 until his death. So this is here. Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, served from 1987 until his death. I really like this guy. He has like a very good book. His film. Wow, I didn't know he was also an actor. Wow. I remember reading one of his books. Okay, just continue. Pano Rinpoche served from 1991 to retirement in 2003. mind-rolling Trichen Rinpoche, serving he's from 19th he served from 2003 until his death. Chul Shik Rinpoche served from 2010 until his death in 2011, selected after Chatra Rinpoche declined the position. Wow, this sounds like a real yogi. Taklung Tresun Rinpoche served from 2012 until his death. Afterward, it was unanimously decided that the internal administration would revolve between the head lamas of the sixth principle of Nyingma Monastery: Katop, Dzogchen, Shechen, Mindrolling, Dorje, Drak, and Balyu. The representative were appointed for 3 year terms at the annual Nyingma Monlam. They include Katok Getse Rinpoche, appointed during the 29 Nyingma Monlam in Bodh Gaya in January 2018, served until his death in November 2018. Next, it's Dzogchen Rinpoche, appointed during the third Nyingma Monlam in Bodh Gaya, India on 15 January 2019. Rinpoche declined this position owing to his health concern. Why don't we see a picture of him? What a nice name. The internal administration recently changed. During the 31st Nyingma Monlam in 2020, Shechen Rabjam Rinpoche was requested to accept the position. Rinpoche did not accept and expressed his concern about how the continued appointment of a head of the tradition would be problematic. Upon his suggestions, the representative of Mayor Nyingma Monastery decided that the position of head of Nyingma tradition would thenceforth not be selected. Instead, representative would be selected for a Nyingma Monlam committee, which would look after the welfare of the tradition. Nyingma school is therefore decentralized, and often individual monastery administrations decisions are made by the community of the lamas together with senior Sangha members. The Nyingma school is also historically characterized and distinguished by this decentralization and by their general wider political disinterest. They have dual sanghas, red and white. The red sangha is composed of ordained monks and nuns, usually residing in monastery and nunneries. The white sangha is composed of vow-holding ngakpapas, who can be householders. Thirtons. The appearance of Dharma is of particular significance of the Nyingma tradition, although there have been a few Kekupar Thirtons treasure revealers, and the practice is endemic to Bompo as well. Bompo? So it's the Bon. What? Okay, let's continue. The vast majority of Tibetan Buddhist territories have been Nyingma Pass. It is held that the past masters, specifically Padmasambhava and Yeshe Tsogan, secret objects and hid teachings for discovery by later Tertons at appropriate and auspicious times such that their teaching would be beneficial. These teachings may be physically discovered, often in rocks and caves, or they might be mind terma appearing directly within the mind stream of the Tertons. The Terma tradition has Tennyson in India. Nagarjuna, for example, rediscovered the last part of Prajaparamita Sutra as one of the 100,000 verse in the realm of Nagas, where it had been kept since the time of Buddha Shakyamuni. Wait, so what? Special Terma lineage were established throughout Tibet. The foremost revealer of these Terma were the five Terton kings from 11 to the 14th century and 8 Lingpas in the 14th and 15th centuries. According to Nyingma tradition, Terton are often mainstream emanation of 25-man disciple of Padmasambhava, a vast system of transmission lineage developed through the ages. Nyingma scriptures were updated when the time was appropriate. Terma teachings guide many Buddhist practitioners to realization and enlightenment. Oh my god, I'm so fucking sleepy. Sorry. So this is like a list of the monastery. I will list it down at this table. Samye, Katok, Dorje Drak, Balyu, Mind Rolling, Dzogchen, Shetchen. One is in U, one is Garze, Lokka, Balyu, Lokka, Kam, Kam. Yeah, so that's all. So we finish episode 1.